All right, so this is a key to the worksheet um, on lines. And number one, it says for the following two lines, 2 points are given. So you're given this line, which passes through these 2 points, and you're given this line, which passes through these 2 points. And you want to determine whether these two lines here are parallel, perpendicular, or neither. And it says make sure you show work and explain why you indicated the lines are parallel, perpendicular, or neither. All right, now the way you had to do that was to use the slope formula. So number one, so remember the slope formula is y2 minus y1 divided by x2 minus x1. So the change in y divided by the change in x. Rise divided by run. In this case, the first line, so I would call this line 1, the points are 7, 6, and the other one is 4, 3. All right, now remember, two lines are parallel if they have the same slope. Two lines are perpendicular if their slopes are negative reciprocals of each other. And then the neither here means that it's neither parallel nor perpendicular. That's what neither means. All right? Okay, so let's go ahead and find the slope. So let's call this x1, y1. This will be x2, y2. All right, so remember, if you put y2 first, you have to put x2 first. So always keep that in mind. So the order in which you write the denominator does matter. Okay, so we have y2, which is 3. So the slope is going to be 3 subtract y1, which is 6, divided by x2, which is 4, subtract x1, which is 7. 3 subtract 6 is a negative 3. 4 subtract 7 is a negative 3. And a negative 3 divided by negative 3 is a positive 1. So the slope of that line is a positive 1. So let's look at line 2 now. So line 2, my points are 4, negative 5, and 2, negative 7. Those are your points. And if we label these again, so x1, y1, x2, y2, and we find the slope. So the slope, we're going to say y2, which is negative 7, subtract y1, which is negative 5, divided by x2, which is 2, subtract x1, which is 4. Now, negative 7 subtract negative 5, if you use your calculator, this is what you're gonna do. So you're going to say negative 7, so negative 7 subtract negative 5, right? And that's a negative 2. So if you do it by hand, it kind of looks like this. You're going to remember, always change subtraction to addition. So it becomes negative 7 plus the opposite of a negative 5. So that's negative 7 plus 5. And then this becomes 2 plus the opposite of 4, which is a negative 4. Well, negative 7 plus 5 is a negative 2. Negative 2 plus a negative 4 is a negative 2. And then negative 2 divided by negative 2 is a positive 1. Okay? Now, so you found the slope of line 1, you found the slope of line 2, right? So now it says this, make sure you show the work, which I did, and explain why you indicated the lines are parallel, perpendicular, or neither. So this is your explanation. All right, so you're going to say explain. So there's your work. Now we're going to explain. So since the lines have the same slope, the lines are parallel. And there's your explanation. Okay? There's your work. There's your explanation. Lines are parallel because they have the same slope, or they have equal slopes. Okay, so that was number 1. Number 2, oh, and if you were to graph this, just to show you, so let's just quickly look at number 1 in terms of the graph. So here's the point 7, 6. So 7, 6 is here. The other point was 4, 3. 4, 3 is here. And when I graph that line, this is what we have. And remember, you just found out that the slope of that line is a positive 1. The other line had these points, 4, -5, and 2, -7. So let's do that one. So 4, -5 is here, and then 2, -7 is here, right here, and then when I draw that line, you were also told that the slope is +1. So the slopes are the same, so that means that these lines should be parallel, and they kind of look parallel, right? So these look parallel lines. All right, but this is what you have to do. You have to show the work, so find the slopes, and then say, give me an explanation. Okay, so number 2. Number 2, same directions as number 1, so the directions are the same. So this time this time line 1 has these 2 points, and line 2 has these 2 points. So let's do number 2 now. So here are your points. So line 1 has points 5, -2, and 3, -7. Okay, and then line 2 has points -3, 5, and 2, 3. All right, so let's find the slope of each of those lines. So let's call this x1, y1, x2, y2. So the slope of line 1. So the slope equals y2, which is -7, subtract y1, which is -2, divided by x2, which is 3, the order matters, subtract x1, which is 5. So -7 subtract -2 means -7 plus 2. And then 3 subtract 5 is 3 plus a -5. -7 plus 2 is a -2. 3 plus a -5 is a -2. So I get a +1. All right, I did not mean for these to all be 1s. Hopefully this is going to not be 1, but let's see. X1, y1, x2, y2. So the slope equals y2, which is 3, subtract y1, which is 5, divided by x2, which is 2, subtract x1, which is -3. So 3 subtract 5 is a -2. 2 subtract a -3, make sure I do this right. Yep, okay. So 2 subtract -3 is 2 plus 3. So that's -2 divided by 5, right? So the slope of that line is -2 fifths. Now let's compare the two slopes. So here's your work, and so the explanation, so you're going to notice that these two slopes are not equal, right? And those two slopes are not negative reciprocals of each other. So therefore you're going to say neither. So you're going to say since the slopes are not equal or negative reciprocals of each other, the lines are neither parallel nor perpendicular. All right, so that's your explanation. Okay, before I go on, let me just make sure I wrote these 2 points, the points here correct. Yep. All right, so there's your answer. Okay, and then finally number 3. Let's look at number 3. So number 3. So notice number 1 and 2, you're given points on that line. In number 3, you're given the equations of lines. All right, so number 3 has 2 parts though. So here are the 2 lines in part A, and then here are the 2 lines in part B. Part A is easy, and the reason part A is easy is because, now remember, to determine if 2 lines are parallel, perpendicular, or neither, you need to know about the slope, right? So if you look at part A, so this is 3A, if you look at part A, both those equations are in slope-intercept form. So y is already by itself. So that's easy. When it's written in slope-intercept form, it is easy to find the slopes. Because remember, slope-intercept form is y equals mx plus b. So the slope is a coefficient of x. So once you get y by itself, the slope is a coefficient of x. So in both cases, both of those equations, y is by itself. It's written in slope-intercept form. So the slope of this line, what you're multiplying x by, is 3/5. So the slope is 3/5. Don't say 3/5 x. The slope is the coefficient of x. It's what you're multiplying x by. And here, the slope is going to be negative 5/3. And so if you look at 3/5 and negative 5/3, obviously those two slopes are not equal, so the lines are not parallel. But notice that 3/5 and negative 5/3 are negative reciprocals of each other. Okay? And then one of the things that you learned is this, that when you for perpendicular lines, just to kind of remind you, for perpendicular lines, if you multiply the slopes together, so the slope of, I'm going to just put this M1, so the slope of line 1 times the slope of line 2, you're going to get a negative 1. So meaning that if you multiply those two numbers, you should get a negative 1. If you get a negative 1, then the lines are perpendicular. All right, so that's another way of looking at it. But just notice, and you didn't have to do that, but just notice that 3/5 and negative 5/3 are negative reciprocals of each other. Because if I actually did multiply them, 3/5 times negative 5/3, 3 times negative 5 is a negative 15, 5 times 3 is a positive 15, negative 15 divided by positive 15 is a negative 1. All right. But all you have to do is say this now. You would say, since the slope, and you have to tell me the slopes. So your explanation, you had to say the slopes. You had to tell me the slope of line 1, the slope of line 2, and then you would say, since the slopes are negative reciprocals of each other, the two lines are perpendicular. All right, but you had to tell me the slope. You can't just say this without telling me what is the slope. What's the slope of each line? So remember, you have to explain your thinking here. All right, and then B, now B is different. So you have 3x minus 5y equals 7, and then the other line is 10x plus 6y equal 12. Okay, so remember, part A was easy because it was written in slope-intercept form. So once it's written in slope-intercept form, you can find the slope. Part B, that is not slope-intercept form. So what you want to do is write it in slope-intercept form. Get y by itself. Okay? All right, so you have some work to do here because you have to transform this equation, both equations, into slope-intercept form. All right, so let's do this one first. So to get y by itself, to get the y by itself, I need to, first of all, get rid of this 3x. So I'm going to subtract 3x from both sides. And then combine like terms, I get negative 5y, so don't forget that's negative, 5y equals a negative 3x plus 7. Then to get y by itself, right now I'm multiplying y by negative 5. The opposite of multiplying by negative 5 is to divide by negative 5. So let me go ahead and just rewrite this over. So now the next thing is I'm going to divide both sides by negative 5, just like this. And now we're going to have to rewrite this, though. So negative 5 divided by negative 5 is 1. 1 times y is y, equal. And I'm going to write this as two separate fractions, so that way it'll look like number 3. It'll be y equals mx and then your constant. So we're going to say negative 3x divided by negative 5 plus 7 divided by negative 5. And then I can rewrite this because a negative divided by negative is a positive. It helps to do that. You need to do that. So y equals 3/5 x, and then positive 7 divided by negative 5 is a negative 7/5. So now the slope is 3/5. So the slope of this line is 3/5. So you found the slope of that line. Now do the same thing with this one. So to get 6y by itself, we're going to subtract 10x from both sides. And then combine like terms, I'm going to get 6 y equal negative 10x plus 12. And then dividing both sides by 6, let me go ahead and just rewrite this over. All right, dividing both sides by 6, just like this. 6 divided by 6 is 1. 1 times y is y equal. And then rewriting it just like we did this into two separate fractions, I get negative 10x divided by 6 plus 12 divided by 6. And then reducing this right here, see the slope is negative 10/6, right? So that's what some of you are going to write it as. And then you're going to then compare these two, and you're going to think, well, they're not equal, they're not negative reciprocals of each other, so you're going to say neither. But be careful. Let's reduce negative 10/5. Negative 10/5 reduced is negative 5/3. Now compare these two. So 3/5 and negative 5/3. And I did not mean it to be the same as these, but you know, that's okay. And now we'll notice that in this case, the slopes are negative reciprocals of each other. They're not equal, so they're not parallel, but they are negative reciprocals of each other. So you're going to say the two lines are perpendicular. So since the slopes, but you have to find the slopes. So I had to see this. I had to see that this slope was 3/5 and this slope was negative 5/3. Okay, you cannot just write what I'm about to write here. You have to tell me what those slopes are. So since the slopes are negative reciprocals of each other, the lines are perpendicular. Okay? All right, so that is the key to this worksheet.